Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined by Zane Simon, that effing idiot, and Victor Rodriguez, the double beard look. We've got 2.5 beers on this episode and a sweater. The excitement couldn't get any bigger. We're here to break down, to dissect, to vivisect UFC Fight Night Fairfax, a.k.a. UFC Fight Night Chad Mendes versus Ricardo Lamas, a.k.a. UFC Fight Night 60-something. So, anybody know the number? Anybody?
63.
I think it's 6. Yeah, there you go.
Although
63.
functionally, since we're both dudes, I don't know that we can be your beards, Nate. That's not really how it works.
Oh, those days are behind us, Zane. Everybody's out and open and free, except in Indiana and Arkansas and 19 other states. So, let's get on to the fights.
Wow.
So, we've got no Fight Pass prelims, and the whole card, big warning, happens at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're on the West Coast like Zane, that's what, 8 a.m.?
Yeah, I'm happy about that.
Any Saturday morning that starts with face punching at 8 a.m. is going to be an eventful Saturday, one would think. Of course, vicarious face punching, not so much. But we got 4 fights on the preliminary card. But first, quick thoughts on the card. Zane first.
It's a solid Fight Pass, Fox Sports 1 card. I mean, it's the kind of thing that it's not gonna like really get anybody out of bed, but it's
Gonna get
for
you out of
those.
bed. Getting me out of bed.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's gonna get you out of bed because you
I'll be out
have
of
to.
bed. Yeah.
But I think it's the kind of thing that for people who are already up and looking, sitting around on their couch on Saturday, it should be a lot of fun. Like there are plenty of fights or fighters that hardcore fans will recognize. Casual fans might know who Chad Mendes is.
Gray Maynard,
Maybe
a couple of title
Gray
fights.
Maynard. Yeah.
And so Clay Guida, well known. And Victor, your quick thoughts on the card as a whole.
Yeah. Well, this sort of resembles an Invicta card in a way. You've got some guys that are just coming in. You've got some veterans that are sort of towards the middle. Some perhaps past their point of being at any degree of contendership. And then you've got some recognizable names, very legit talent at the top. So all in all, this looks like a very fun event top to bottom. And I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Excellent. Well, let's dive right in. First up, we got middleweights Ron Stallings and Justin Jones. Not one of the fights we're so pumped about, but quick, Zane, give us your thoughts on this one quickly.
It should be a good action fight. I mean, Stallings is a high output Muay Thai striker, and Jones is just kind of a heavy-handed sprawl and brawl guy. I'm really not sure who's going to win this. Stallings is the better technical fighter, but Jones seems like the tougher, more powerful striker. So, I don't know. I think there's a good chance Jones wins this just because he is so willing to come forward and put power into everything he does. But it's a tough fight to call. I'm picking Jones, but not by much.
And Victor, your pick?
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Jones as well. This is the UFC's version of a thank you note for Ron Stallings stepping up late notice to fight Uriah Hall. I think Justin Jones is just a far better athlete. He seems to have his overall game far more together. And, Stallings, despite his experience, I don't really think he's going to be it'll definitely be competitive, and that's a good thing, but I really don't see him having much of a chance of winning this fight.
All right, and the odds makers agree. We've switched to oddshark.com, the official odds partner of SB Nation, so we're giving them a plug. And the odds makers have Jones favored, but not enormously, anywhere from -130 up to -170. And Stallings is the dog, anywhere from +105 all the way up to +135. And that brings us to the second fight of the 4-fight Fox Sports 1 prelim. The whole card's on Fox Sports 1, but arbitrarily split into prelims and main card. And the second one, heavyweights Shamil Abdurakhimov and Timothy Johnson. Now that was some name pronunciation, I have to say. Victor, on that high note, you can go first.
Abdurakhimov.
Now,
I'll tell you what, this guy
trying to make me look bad.
I don't think he's going to be fighting Cain Velasquez anytime soon, but I'm saying this, though. Keep your eye on this cat right here. This is going to be, I think it's going to be a coming out party for him. I mean, he's just been fighting some really talented guys in Eastern Europe. He's been putting on some pretty impressive performances, even though his cardio does seem a bit suspect in some of those fights, but he is a scary, scary dude. Johnson is one of those dudes who likes to press you against the cage, wear you down, and then just grind you out. I don't think he's going to get away with that. I don't think that he has the ability to hold on to him, and he hasn't faced a sort of more experienced and just better caliber of fighter that I'm doing it again. Abduraimov has faced. So I'm very comfortably picking him to win that one.
All right, Zane, are you hyped on the new blood as well?
I don't know about hyped. He's been around. He's a bit of an undersized heavyweight, and he's not like he's one of those guys who's really tough and diverse and a pretty decent athlete, but he's just not dominant anywhere. He's really probably at his best in scrambles and in transition, pushing guys down and then finding submissions or landing hard shots as they're trying to get up. But he's good. I mean, he's a competitive heavyweight, and this is probably the most one-sided fight on the card. So Timothy Johnson's just kind of the low-level, late-coming brawler that we get on the U.S. regional scene of guys who start late in the game and just don't seem to have much to offer and are still trying to get into shape as they get to the UFC. And so I expect Shamil Abdurakhimov to really work him over.
I see, not a fun place to be trying to get in shape in the UFC. And the odds makers, they like some Shamil too. They've got him favored from minus 260 all the way up to minus 280. If that's the biggest odds on the card, though, this is going to be a lot of close matchups because a lot of times we see the minus 500s, even minus 1100s. And Johnson, the underdog, plus 190 up to plus 225. And that brings us to our third fight of the night. Lightweight, Gray, what am I doing on the prelims of a Saturday morning card? Maynard against Alexander Yakovlev. Zane, you go first. Is this it for Gray Maynard? He's riding an ugly streak of TKO and knockout losses.
It's going to be, it's definitely, it could be the end of the line. I mean, I don't know. It's definitely a low bar that he has to jump over, and I'm not sure he can. You know, I think it's reasonable for people to say that Gray Maynard technically has looked like the best fighter of his career right now. Like, from his pure punching mechanics, the way he's, like, actually styling his fight.
Right up to the point where he gets knocked out.
Yeah, which and that's not the technical side, that's the physical side. And that's the part that's really failing him heavily. And Yakovlev is not the kind of athlete that's going to knock him out or like test him. I mean, he just doesn't have a lot of power. So it's a fight that Maynard should win. Like physically he's stronger, technically he's better. He should win this fight. But if he doesn't, man, that's bad. And I don't know. I'm going to pick Maynard because the matchup makes sense for him. But he really has to win. Like, it's a bad fight.
It's do or die for his career. Victor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Maynard is on a 3-fight losing skid, and they're all by finish. They're all by TKO. And Yakovlev, I remember watching him fight Damian Maia where he was a little gun shy. He ended up getting dropped. I don't know if he's going to be eager to engage with Maynard standing, where I think Maynard would certainly have an advantage. That said, we could get a very fun grappling match, even though Maynard isn't big on applying submissions and all that. But I would have to favor Maynard, but I don't really feel too comfortable with how this whole thing would go, especially if he loses. I don't know where they'd go from there, what he's going to do. But this is a winnable fight for him, and it's certainly a very solid test to see where he's at.
And the odds makers, initially Maynard opened at minus 160, but the odds already are dropping on him. They've got him anywhere from minus 103 all the way up to plus 101. So some lines actually are favoring Yakovlev, who is open at plus 120, but now you're seeing lines like minus 115 and minus 130, all the way minus 117. So that's pretty interesting. You rarely see a line move that far from the opening favorites, and not a lot of faith in Gray Maynard from the betting degenerates. As always, it's a venal sin. Avoid it if you can. Life ruiner. But if you get the cold shakes or tasty odds like me, steal, beg, borrow, whatever you got to do. All right, I didn't say that. Don't steal. Bad. Don't do that. All right, women's bantamweights, Liz Carmouche and Lauren Murphy are headlining the prelims. Again, I think arguably a bigger fight than the women's bantamweight fight on the main card, but I guess the theory is that Carmouche is headlining the opening card. So Victor, you can go first on this one.
Yeah, I think this is going to be it's going to be a tough fight. Really, it's going to get ugly. It's going to be tough for people to watch more than anything else. I would have to say Carmouche definitely has an advantage with her boxing. At least she's a little more composed, whereas Murphy likes winging big shots and sort of getting into sloppy um, exchanges in which she'll be able to clinch and work on the ground. Much like the Yakovlev and Maynard fight, we could end up with some fun engagements on the ground, but I don't really see it being too much. I think Carmouche's top control is going to be too much there, and I think she takes this.
All right, and Zane, your thoughts?
I don't know. And this is one of those weird things where like I feel bad because you can't really write Carmouche off. She hasn't actually been around that long. She's only been fighting for 4 or 5 years now. But it really I think it's just one of those products of hype things where she came into that Rousey fight and she was close and she almost she looked good in a loss and everybody was like, oh, she's top 5, oh, she's
One
top
dog
3.
bite away from the title, baby. One dog bite away from the title.
Yeah, and since then she's just looked mediocre to bad, except for a win over Jessica Andrade. I mean, she's just not. She has a lot of development to do, and none of it has showed up, really. She's not become a better wrestler. She's not become a better boxer, really. And she's not, she just doesn't have a lot of finishing tools. And those things, they're improving slowly, but they're not improving to the point where I am suddenly really high on her chances. And I mean, I don't know. Murphy has a lot to prove as well. But I guess I feel like there's more chances for a big jump for her to make a big jump right here and show up better. I don't think that Carmouche has any of the wrestling that Sarah McMahon does, and I'm gonna pick Murphy here. I don't trust Carmouche. I think that she keeps getting this contender bias well past the point of contention where people are like, no, she's really good. No, she's gonna win this fight or win that fight, and then she just looks really lackluster. So.
And it's another fight where the odds open Carmouche at minus 155 to open, Murphy at plus 115. But now you're seeing Carmouche at lines like minus 110, minus 120, and Murphy at lines like minus 105, minus 110, minus 120. So the gamblers seem to like Murphy more than the odds makers did. And that brings us to the main card. Lightweight, Dustin Poirier, best known as a featherweight in the UFC competition, moving up to lightweight. Not his first. This is not his lightweight debut? Is it his second fight?
This is his lightweight debut.
It is. All right, because his last one was a fairly big featherweight fight, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, McGregor.
Yeah, he got blitzed by Conor McGregor, of course. How could I forget? And Carlos Diego Ferreira against Dustin Poirier. Zane, you can go first.
All right, This is a fight that Dustin Poirier should win. He's faced better competition, done better against that competition, is pretty well-rounded everywhere. Good wrestler, good striker, good grappler, aggressive. But Ferreira's dangerous. He's a good athlete. He's really wild on his feet, willing to throw a lot of kicks with a lot of power, comes in hard behind his strikes, and will then use that aggression to force takedowns, and his grappling is great. I'm picking Poirier to be able to kind of sprawl and brawl and be a little more powerful and consistent in his striking. He throws a lot more straight punches. He's a little better at his fundamentals when he strikes. I think that'll do well for him. But if he gets into a firefight, it could just become a matter of whoever lands the big shot first.
All right, and Victor, your thoughts on this brawl?
I'm exactly where Zane is on this. I think Poirier's just got too many advantages. As far as outside of jiu-jitsu, he's pretty much got everything else covered to be a more complete mixed martial artist. And I think he's smart enough to know how to stay out of the parts that'll really get him in danger. I don't think he's going to really let himself get in a position where he's going to have his back taken or anything like that. And he will be able to survive, hopefully, to the point where that won't be as much of a problem. Ferreira, he's 2-1 in the UFC. His last fight against Ramsey Nijem, he was getting really styled on the feet, and Ramsey was doing everything pretty much right until he got baited into a firefight, like Zane mentioned, and then he got slept as a result. So Poirier's not going to play that game. That's just not going to happen. I would firmly give Dustin the advantage here. This is a fight that he can and should win against a legit threat of an opponent.
All right, and the odds open with Poirier favored minus 150 to plus 110, and they've been dropping ever since. Poirier now in the plus 185, minus 185, minus 200, minus 190. So if you like Poirier, you better get in quick because the odds are only getting less and less reward on that. And Ferreira open at plus 110, moving up into the 120 plus 150, 160 range now. And that brings us to the second fight of the main card, featherweight Clay Guida against Robbie Peralta. Yet another man with his back against the wall. Is this it for Clay Guida, Victor?
No, absolutely not. I still think he's got some fun fights that he can put on. It'll be a little difficult to pair him up with certain people. I mean, some guys probably won't want to fight him. Some guys might want to use him as a stepping stone. But I certainly think he can win this fight. But there's a guy that Zane should probably send a bottle of scotch to. He's probably the best fighter that Explode has produced and actually been somewhat successful in the UFC. But I really do think that he does not have what it takes to beat Clay Guida, even at this stage in his career.
And Zane, your take?
Yeah, Peralta. My line on Peralta has always been that he's the best fighter you can be by being a great athlete who never picks up any actual fundamental skills. He's fast. He's powerful. He's aggressive. He's still not a great striker, still not a great wrestler, still not a great grappler. And none of that, as long as he's training out of Team Explode, is probably going to change, and also working a full-time job as well as being a fighter. And Guida, if it were just a striking matchup, if Guida didn't have the wrestling that he does and the consistency in his wrestling that he does, I'd probably pick Peralta to win it just because he is faster and more powerful. But Guida's wrestling should be too much. His wrestling and grappling are where Peralta tends to struggle defensively, and I think that Guida can stay on him to win. If Guida tries to just exchange with him, it could be sort of the Poirier Ferreira situation, where Peralta could land a big punch and knock him out, but I don't think that Guida's quite at that point in his career yet.
All right, and the odds makers, Guida opened at minus 230, Peralta at plus 170, and the odds on Guida are just getting more expensive, minus 240, minus 250, 270. So, and Peralta is dropping into the plus 205, plus 210. So, if you like Clay Guida, you want to get in quick because the odds are just getting less remunerative. All right, women's bantamweight, Juliana Pena versus Milana Dudieva. How's that, Victor?
Dudieva, but I'll take it. Oh, man. Yeah, I got to wonder here if I think the biggest question is going to be how Pena's layoff after her injury back in, early 2014 or something like that? I know it was late 2013 she got injured. She's only 5-2. She's, I really don't know how she's going to do coming back. Hopefully she's improved her overall game. Dudieva's really much more dangerous in the scrambles and submission games, especially chaining submissions one after the other. So hopefully Pena will be able to mind her P's and Q's. I'm not really comfortable making a pick right here because we very well could see a surprise.
All right, and Zane, your thoughts?
Not comfortable making a pick?
I know, I was about to say, no. And you're the one rocking the heavy beard.
Hey.
We'd expect this kind of thing from Zane with his fancy sweater. And is that what kind of fabric is that? It looks very comfortable.
It's cotton.
It's cotton.
Yeah.
You could have told me cashmere or silk.
Of our lives.
I know. If I said silk, I'd hope you'd be at least a little incredulous on that for the heavy knit sweater. But whatever. Yeah, this is a fight that Pena should win. Dudieva has a really nice triangle armbar sequence that she is good at hooking up, and she has submissions off her back, but it's the kind of thing that, Pena's not really a big submission. She's not likely to get really stopped by submissions a lot. That's not really what her whole is submission grappling. And so I think Pena's wrestling is better than Dudieva's. Dudieva's she's a really good sort of one-handed striker, and that's she throws one punch really well, but she doesn't have a lot to back that up until she gets on her back on the ground. And so I think that Pena can just bull rush her, take her down, and then work her over from Dudieva's back, where Dudieva's way too comfortable to stay. So I think Pena will probably take a decision, just picking up points and rounds that way.
All right, and Pena opened up at a minus 305 favorite. Dudevia opened at plus 225. The odds have since been getting better for Pena, now down to minus 300, minus 270, 274. So some people share Victor's questions about her. Dudevia is dropping slightly, plus 220, plus 228, plus 230. So not enormous odds there. And that brings us to lightweights. Michael Keisha versus Mitch Clark. Is anybody pumped for this? I'm not feeling it. Zane, you talk first.
I'm pumped for this fight. I'll say that.
You are a degenerate fighting addict. Do you like to see any two random people brawling?
There's that, but also it's just because these two are action grapplers, and that's really how they make their living. I mean, then especially Keisha is the kind of guy who will not, for any way, he's not the kind of guy who gets stuck on his feet and just is willing to kickbox a fight. He's the kind of fighter who will work no matter what to bring the fight to the ground and try and grapple. And Clark is, Clark's best sort of strategy is his grappling as well. I mean, they're very similarly styled fighters. I think technically this comes down to probably Keisha having a better, more well-defined wrestling and grappling game. He's better at getting guys down from weird angles, playing kind of a funky wrestling game, better at taking the back, more consistent in doing that. But I'm going to take a homer pick and go with Clark. I like him. He's an awesome guy. He's a lot of fun, and he's a great opportunist. That's really his thing, is that if you make mistakes against him, he'll jump on it. So I'm going with Mitch here and riding the homer train.
That's the kind of honesty you can expect from our panel kids. We got admitted homers here. We got guys who can't man up to make a pick. So Victor, try to redeem yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Keisha here. I mean, they're both really talented grapplers in general, as well as really good with their submissions. Very crafty, very, very crafty guys, both. But I really do think that Keisha's just got a better sense of positioning and being able to, I guess, time his attacks a little better. And I think his wrestling and his pressure will probably be a bit much for Clark. Either way, we're guaranteed to have a pretty fun set of scrambles here, as long as they don't keep it standing and we end up with essentially what happens when you have two high-level grapplers and they start standing up. You end up with a shitty kickboxing match. I don't think we're going to see that here. I mean, neither one of these guys are big on they don't have any delusions of being knockout artists or anything like that. So I would pretty comfortably pick Keisha here, even though Clark it's a very winnable fight. I really do think it's going to be great, and I would certainly favor Keisha here.
All right, and Keisha might be the most favored guy in the card. He opened up at minus 350. Now you're seeing anywhere from minus 360, 370, even a 385. And Clark opened up at plus 250, and that's gotten worse, plus 280, plus 295, plus 310. So if you agree with our panel and you think this is anybody's fight, this might be an attractive thing to squander the family fortune on. Like I said, go in heavy, baby. Go in heavy. All right. So I've been told that's not how you bet. That you're supposed to put a tiny percentage of each of your betting roll on each fight. Anyway, lightweights: George Gamebred Masvidal versus Al Iaquinta. Does Al Iaquinta have a nickname? Because the kid needs one. Dynamic.
Raging Al.
Raging Al.
Yeah, Raging Al.
Also known as Alejandro.
Alejandro.
That's a. Yeah, he fought in Mexico, and the crowd was cheering for him, calling him Alejandro, and that kind of stuck.
I see. That's kind of fun. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
But
he'd actually prefer to go as that now. That's like his hook now.
I see. Well, I'll go with that. And Victor, you're so enthused about Alejandro. Tell us about the fight.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When you got when you have that Serra Longo tutelage and backing. I mean, Masvidal is just a really, really good striker, and I'm not sure how Iaquinta is going to deal with that. Masvidal's got great takedown defense. He's got a hell of a lot more experience. He's not as explosive as Iaquinta, certainly, and he's not as much of a guy who keeps that sort of pressure on when he's grappling or trying to sap the other guy's cardio. So I'm going to have to go with Masvidal here, although Iaquinta, certainly this is going to be a fun matchup with very, it seems unlikely and unpredictable result here. We could see a lot of things happening here, but yeah, I'm picking Masvidal on this, and I'm not really too comfortable, but I'm picking him.
My concern with this fight is that Masvidal, I think, has the better fight IQ. Iaquinta is more explosive, I think more dynamic at this point in his career, but has shown some real tendencies to make inexcusable mental lapses late in fight. I just see Masvidal as shutting it down and controlling the rhythm and controlling the pace and making it a less fun fight than I personally would want to see. I think some action favors Iaquinta. Zane, your thoughts?
Well, unfortunately, Masvidal is also kind of known for his huge mental lapses. I mean, nobody starts a fight worse than George Masvidal, or Jorge
That's
Masvidal.
a slow starter. That's different than giving the fight away after you've already pretty much won it. I mean, I haven't seen Masvidal get himself submitted in the blink of an eye the way Iaquinta has on more than one occasion.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's just kind of, to me, both guys are really pretty similar in that way. I mean, Iaquinta has shown it at times later in fights maybe, but they both have a tendency to start out slow and get hit a lot and get hit because they throw in volume and just charge out at their opponent, expecting their opponent to just kind of not really be able to hang with them at all. And it takes them a little while to kind of figure out, it's like, okay, well, maybe I actually have to use my defense and pay attention after I throw a combination to get out of the way and move my head and all that kind of thing. I think more and more we've been seeing that Iaquinta, how well he can do over the long haul against somebody who can strike with him. Certainly his bout with Ross Pearson was just Iaquinta's bell to bell, until he knocked him out, was dominating Pearson. At the same time, he struggled some with Joe Lozon early before brutalizing him in the second round. I'm going to go with Iaquinta just I guess purely from a narrative perspective, because I do think they match up really well together. Both men are very tight wrestlers. Both men have been very solid grapplers. Both men are very solid strikers. But this is the fight that Iaquinta should, these are the fights he should be winning at this point in his career. These are the points where he should be getting over and, slipping into that sort of top 10, top 15 range. And Masvidal is the kind of guy, he's been around the block more times than I can count at this point. He's been, it was back in 2007 he beat Yves Jablin, and or Yves Edwards rather, not Jablin, but and back in 2007 he beat Yves Edwards and was then in Strikeforce and in Bellator, and
Paul Daly.
Yeah, fought Paul Daly, fought KJ Nunes, fought Gilbert Melendez back in 2011. He's been around, and this is the point that we should be seeing Iaquinta being the guy who gets over, and that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to pick Iaquinta here. I think there's every chance that Masvidal jumps on a submission in a scramble, or just hits him hard a couple times and breaks his rhythm. But I'm going to take Iaquinta by decision.
All right, and the odds makers do not agree. They like Masvidal. They open at minus 190. They've dropped a little bit more, like minus 120, minus 35, minus 170 now. And Iaquinta opened up at plus 150, but the action's been moving in his direction. Now he's down to plus 105, plus 115, plus 110. So a very interesting fight. For my money, this is the most interesting fight on the card. I don't know. Masvidal's burned me too many times in the entertainment department, though, to be expecting a barn burner. But now we get to probably, obviously, the headliner. Chad Mendes, Ricardo Lamas, both former featherweight title challengers. Is this a battle to remain relevant? I mean, is the loser essentially done as a future title challenger, or are these guys going to be dancing with Conor McGregor perhaps someday? Not that Conor McGregor's going to win the title, but I just threw that. Anyway, go ahead, Vic.
Yeah, I don't think for a second that the loser of this particular fight, unless they lose in a manner that's absolutely horrible, like in the first round, 30-second embarrassment type thing, not even like a quick submission, just, so unless it's some sort of obliteration, I don't really see either of these guys losing any degree of relevance in the division. And well, as long as Aldo remains champion, Mendes is going to have a very, very tough road if he ever gets a third crack at him. Even with that sensational second fight that they just had last year. Lamas is a very talented guy. I just don't think he's ever really. I mean, he's never really beaten anyone that's on Chad Mendes' level. I don't think he's ever really beaten a guy who was that savvy and athletic and well-rounded. So I really don't know how Lamas is going to do it. I'm pretty sure the odds will probably favor Mendes for good reason, mostly because of his wrestling acumen and as well as his striking and movement and having Martin Kampmann now in his corner instead of Dan Ludwig. But Lamas certainly has a shot, but it's going to be a very tough uphill climb for him.
Are we sold on Martin Kampmann as a replacement for Dwayne Ben Ludwig as a striking coach for Team Alpha Male?
Well, what they have in common is that they're both very sharp guys who coach better than they fight, and that's saying a lot in the case of Martin Kampmann. I don't know how that'll affect Mendes, but some of the bang effect must have rubbed off on him because he trained with him for a long time.
I think personally, there's just no Kampmann. There's no way for him to replace Ludwig because Ludwig was able to come in and show massive and appreciable results immediately.
Fighter after fighter.
Yeah, fighter after fighter, and he was able to get Team Alpha Male a champion, and he was able to show big results that everybody could see. So now you've had somebody who came in and took a team of wrestle boxers and turned them into great strikers who also wrestle well, and now you've got the guy who follows him. And what's he going to build on there? He's not going to make them, any improvements he can make, whether he's a better coach or not, are not going to be as huge as the improvements that the guy before him was able to make. So there's just no way for him to follow that. You can't.
Not to match the name, but he can match the performance level.
Well, he can maintain the performance level, but you can't say it'd be whoever follows GSP, and then it's are they going to be a better champion? And it's well,
we already know the answer. Johnny Hendricks is a one-and-done champ.
Yeah,
so
but
you guys aren't even old enough to remember when Barry Switzer replaced Jerry Jones as coach of the Dallas Cowboys, are you? Anybody?
Probably not. No.
Yeah, because
I've just never given enough of a shit about the Dallas Cowboys.
Jimmy Johnson, actually, not Jerry Jones, but Jimmy Johnson built this incredible dynasty. But he was such a Machiavellian. They had to get rid of him or he retired before. And they had one more Super Bowl season. Barry Switzer was the guy who would let him party in the clubhouse, like Barry Switzer, a player's coach. And they just coasted to another Super Bowl. So it was the worst NFL coach to ever win a Super Bowl title, at least in my experience.
Yeah,
anyway,
totally off the track. It's that idea that, once somebody's evolved the system that much, no matter how good the person following them is, they can't get as much credit.
Well, I might not get as much credit, but if the guys continue to win titles, and he's the striking coach, that's not a bad gig.
No, it's not a bad gig. I'm just saying that, before Team Alpha Male, before Dwayne Ludwig came to Team Alpha Male, they won titles and they were a great team. They've always been a great team. It's just that Ludwig made a huge imprint there that I don't think anybody else is going to follow easily.
Fair enough, but back to brass tacks. Mendes versus Lamas. How do you see the fight going?
I got to pick Mendes as well. Lamas is an opportunist. That's really the best way to describe how he fights. He's a lot oh God, I always forget his name. John Moraga at flyweight. Where every time you watch John Moraga fight, you're like, man, this guy is he's not that great. He shouldn't be a top 5 flyweight. And then in the middle of this ugly back and forth fight, he just slaps on the submission, lands a huge strike or something like that, and the fight's over, and you're just oh, well, there you go then. And Lamas is the same way. He was not winning versus Dennis Bermudez. He was not winning against Eric Koch. He's, had all these, and even I don't even think he deserved to win against Takran Diaz. But in a lot of these fights, he'll just come out of nowhere with either a huge powerful strike or a submission in transition or something like that. When his opponent makes a mistake, he can jump on it and do something with it. But Chad Mendes, he's that kind of elite class of guys who just don't make mistakes. And when somebody doesn't make mistakes, when you put Jose Aldo in front of Ricardo Lamas, there's not a lot there to his game.
Yeah. Whereas Mendes, though, got cracked a few times by Aldo, and I'm curious to know if his chin perhaps might have been weakened a little bit. He didn't get blitzed, but not like in the first fight. But that might be Lamas's best and only chance, is to crack Mendes with a shot that stuns him, and then the killer instinct. I mean, anybody, if they're semi-conscious, except for Frankie Edgar, is liable to be taken out quickly by Lamas if he hurts him.
Yeah, if that's the great thing about being an opportunist, is that when that opportunity presents itself, he's great at jumping on it. So obviously there's a chance that he could hurt Mendes and then jump on him and submit him or pound him out or something like that. But
that reminds me of this dirtbag I knew. Like, whenever a band was about to get signed, suddenly they had a new coke dealer, and it was always this guy. Or if a lawyer was hitting like the skids but had money, it's like you'd see him at not that I was there, but you'd see him at like a strip club, and there's that scumbag like helping him spend his money. It was like that guy had a nose for trouble. I always admired that about him. But bad citizen, no, bad citizen. Anyway, so Mendes, is that what we're saying?
We're saying Mendes should be the pick, yes.
Yes,
after that diversion.
It's called a life lesson, kids. A life lesson. If you know a guy like that, stay as far away from as you can. If you see him showing up with your brother-in-law at parties, you might want to say something to your sister. All right, so Mendes heavily favored, -400 opener, and it's moved in his direction, -440, 430, -24, 25. Lamas opened up at +280, and it's dropped like a rock since then, +350, 345, 355. So everybody likes Chad Mendes to win this fight. Should be over by 4 or 5 o'clock Eastern time. Should be an interesting Saturday afternoon if face punching is your thing. For those of us here on the show today, it is. So remember to subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter at KidNate, at TheZaneSimon. Victor, what's your Twitter handle?
At Vic M. Rodriguez.
Vic M. Rodriguez. Simple enough.
Yes.
Simple enough. And read us on bloodyelbow.com, and we'll be back, Zane and I, Saturday afternoon with the 6th round post-fight. Eugene will have Knuckle Up on Monday. I believe Tom Grant will have Inside the Guard. Conor Rubish and Patrick Wyman will have Heavy Hands. Rinse and repeat. We've got another Gonzaga versus Krokop 2 coming out of Poland up next, so we'll have all the fixins, the care, don't care preview, the Vivisection, onward and upward. So adios, MMA aficionados. Thanks a lot, guys. It was informative and edutaining. We'll see you next time.